Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the ITELab project. I'm delighted to have around 35 universities joining the ITELab project and participating with ourselves and our industry partners in the spring projects and also in the autumn programme. This is a briefing to give you an update on what's happened within the spring, where we're at, and our planning for the autumn. The purpose of it is to summarise to you the content options and ideas and opportunities to participate in the autumn so that it helps all universities with their planning. And we will then be in touch with you to coordinate the autumn and how all the universities coordinate. We are very interested in hearing from more universities as we reach out and extend our networks. So please, if you know of another university colleague who would like to participate with us in the autumn programme, please share the information with them and you would be very welcome to join as well. As we're coming through the session today, we will be joined by people online. I see Herman joining us there from Austria, and also Kristina, I hope I pronounced the name right. Welcome to everyone joining us remotely. And as I say, we have a number of, most of our partners are not able to join in real time, so we'll record the meeting and share with that, with the recording and actions from them. So thank you. So today I'm very pleased to be joined by Dr. Conor Galvin, who is the lead in our module framework design, Conor, and Bart Verswidgel, who is our lead in our student MOOC design. And we'll start the presentation with an overview by both, first of all, Conor, and then move to Bart. We can take questions as we go along or in the chat line. Please just ask and I will keep my eye on the chat line. And then the second part, we will talk about different implementation options. We have our university here from Perugia. They can share their options with you and how they've been, this is the third cycle they'll go into in the autumn, and take your questions there as well. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Conor and hope you enjoy the session. Thank you, Conor.
Thank you very much, Dorothy, for this invitation, and good afternoon, colleagues from Dublin. It doesn't feel all that long ago that we were doing the briefing for the spring session, so please forgive me if I say, have we covered this already? I realize we haven't. So just a little bit initially about the ITELab to refresh the memory of those who have been involved previously, and to actually give a sense to those who will be watching the briefing remotely in terms of what we do and why we do it. So effectively, the ITELab is all about developing digital pedagogical skills for future teachers, be they primary teachers, be they secondary teachers, be they further education teachers. In the main, our partnership consists of primary and secondary teacher educators on the teaching side, but we also have some interest in further education and indeed vocational education if that opportunity presents as the final run through goes on. Effectively, what we have at this point in time is a trialed and tested set of frameworks which are effectively packages of content coupled with practical activities that cover what we consider to be the main areas of interest and the main areas of activity that young student teachers should engage with either before they go on to their first placements or during the late stages of their teacher education itself, if they are in institutions which have placements as part of their education programs. So we have 3 full module frameworks tested out at this stage, and not very imaginatively perhaps we call them for short module A, B and C frameworks, but all have been tested at least once. The module A framework material, the beginning materials for young teachers, have effectively been tested 3 times. So very much what we're doing in relation to the module frameworks in the coming autumn period is confirming the effectiveness and the amount of work ability that actually connects to the materials. So it's not so much a pilot in this final round, it's more a confirmation exercise to double check some of the indications that have come to us earlier from colleagues and so on. We also have one open course MOOC, which Bart will be talking about in a few minutes' time, so I'm not going to speak very much about that, other than to say that I think Bart and his team have done an absolutely incredible job so far in terms of publicizing that MOOC and bringing it to the attention of relevant teachers, young teachers, student teachers, and also reaching out in a way that has engaged the imagination of both teachers and teacher educators. So our philosophy is pretty simple in one sense. We can reference it in terms of these three headings. We're interested in innovative, pedagogical focused work. So innovative in the sense of trying things that are slightly new, slightly different. It is activity driven and collaborative in the main, and it is very much focused on connecting one with the other, connecting in both with the university partners and especially with our industry partners to benefit from what they're able to make available to us and the help and assistance they're actually giving us in terms of developing content and activities. And we've seen a lot of that, particularly in the spring, towards the end of the spring break, when we've been working with both Smart Technologies and Microsoft in relation to content in our spaces. The third kind of area, I suppose, I'd emphasize is that it is flexible and agile. We pride ourselves on having coming up with ideas that work very well in a loosely connected train. So a module framework is effectively a series of loosely connected ideas and activities with a strong theme running through them, but they can be dipped into, you can take a part of it, you can take all of it, you can take a small portion of it, and it will fit effectively to your university's setting and context. The reason for that is that we've structured it along ECTS credit structure lines. So the structure is there, the flexibility is there, and most importantly, it is related to initial teacher education from a pan-European perspective. We're following good practice in relation to teacher education from right across Europe, and testing out ideas that work in some settings or many settings has been a hallmark of what we've actually been doing in the project. This is our North Star reference. Now, effectively, everything that we do comes back to the content that you will find if you have a look at this European framework, which was released about a year and a half ago at this point. We were the first to, I suppose, spot the advantages of working to this framework, and we have made sure that all of our materials connect in very direct ways to one or more of the various headings to do with the capability and competence areas. And we're very proud that it's come together so well, and very pleased with how successful our efforts in that area have actually been. So the other kind of, I suppose, feature that probably deserves mentioning is the fact that we don't do anything without talking to our partners, be they our student partners, be they our industry partners, be they the other academic partners in the sequence. We connect to our academic partners, we work with them rather than on them, and that is important. We have also listened very carefully throughout the project to the student voice, and I'm pleased to say that we have a very active student presence in our Facebook page and in terms of the pedagogical group that is directing and steering the work that we actually do. So we have student voices bedded into all that we do and at just about every level. And I'm delighted to say that we had a number of our students at various conferences, particularly the Santarém recently, and the Eminent Conference particular, where we had a number of our students speaking publicly about the project. There's more to come in that space, but again, perhaps I'll leave that for later. Our frameworks are pretty coherent at this stage. The largest one is the one on your left as you're looking at the screen. It's a 10 credit coherent offering that's to do with teaching and learning and professional development. But it has a particular focus on the beginning teacher, the beginning or student teacher. So that's the long module, if you like. We run that here at UCD over 10 to 12 weeks. It tends to cover from very beginning right the way through to intermediate level of capability in relation to both technical usage and in relation to pedagogical planning for the usages of technology in our classrooms. I'm delighted to see Cassia there from Kazan, because they're one of the project associate partners that joined us this year to test out some of the material. And I look forward to having a live conversation with the Kazan partner, the associate partners, when I go to the conference there next week. The second two modules then are shorter. They're pitched at about a level 5 ECTS value. The first is Designing for Learning, which is more or less what it says. It deals with the whole area of constructing learning experiences for use in classroom and learning settings. The final one then, the Working with Learners, focuses on the processes of learning, focuses on the areas of interest that our students have brought to us and said, we need to do more work in relation to how technology can be used to help our learners in classroom and school settings. So that's been the focus for the third of the three frameworks you see there. Framework A has been run with two flavors, if you like, a primary strand and a secondary strand. Framework B has been common strand and Framework C has been common strand. In other words, we use it with both primary and secondary colleagues. However, we have tried two different ways of teaching the final block, the working with learners. One which we call a block approach, which is 4 to 5 days intensive, and the other which is spread over a half semester, which in UCD terms is 6 to 7 weeks. So we've been piloting that in the spring, and we'll have some interesting results, I think, to share with colleagues as the summer comes through. The kinds of materials that our students, this is just a very quick snapshot, but the kinds of materials our students produce, you can get a sense of them from this particular grab from a Padlet screen, which shows some of the work that was done in relation to Module A activity in one of our sites in the spring pilot. And we have as a kind of an anchor point or a harbor, we have this particular site which we call our ITE staff hub, and that's consistently updated to reflect what's going on in relation to the activities of the project. So on a week-to-week basis, materials are uploaded, and this keeps us in line. It also acts as a repository, and we have translations up there in several languages for the basic handbooks that we're using for each of the first two of the modules. The third handbook, the Framework C handbook, will go up when we finish testing materials in this spring run, if you like. I think, Dorothy, that's as much as I can say for now about the module structure, the framework, and so on. Perhaps we will hold questions towards the end. I don't see anything in the chat line that needs to be addressed immediately. So other than that, I think that's as much as I'd like to say, unless you want to point out to me one or two things that I've missed, which I've
not at all, Connor. That was a very nice, clear overview of the module frameworks and the flexibility of them within university structures. So thank you very much for that, Connor. And we'll come back to looking at how they can be applied in different ways in the second part of the presentation. So thank you, Connor. Can I hand over to Bart now? Bart, if you could take us through the overview of the MOOC. Bart. Hello, Bart.
Yeah. Hello. Your sound went up and down. Okay. You hear me okay? Hello? Hello, hello, hello?
Sorry, Bart. Yes, I can hear you perfectly. Good. Lovely. Hello, I can hear you.
Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you perfectly, Bart. Yes, I hear you perfectly.
Okay.
Can you hear me? I'm putting my sound on mute, so that is why there is a delay. Bart, please go ahead.
Okay, we will. We will be back with something that was for us, I think, a very nice experience. We had the MOOC running, that open online course running in February, March. And the numbers of registrations, I think, outreached our wildest expectations with more than 3,700. Of course, we aimed at the student teachers in the first place and newly qualified teachers, but also more advanced teachers took part, and in the end, it was not a problem at all. On the contrary, I think this combination of young teachers connecting to more advanced teachers is also, in fact, something that we want to get out of this experience of the MOOC, that you feel connected to a group of teachers either in your school and outside the school. So that was really a very good experience, as I said earlier. We will be back on the 14th of October with the same structure and also the same content. At this moment, the feedback is being processed, so there might be some small changes. But let's have a look at this later. Sorry. But I think in general, the course will be a rerun of the same content and the same chapters that you see here displayed here. So there is one on the transition of being a student to being a teacher and reaching out to other teachers in and outside the school. We have a chapter on technology in the classroom, a chapter on space design, and the last one, the second staff room, is about professional development. And I think the content was at our first, let's say, feedback that we got on Twitter and everywhere, quite positive. You may think 3,700, that's quite a lot. Participants may feel like a number, but I don't think that was the case, because we made this MOOC as social as possible, with as much as interaction as possible, given the framework of those 3,000 something participants. Of course, all the activities, all the contributions had the option to give comments to what others contributed, to give feedback. We also used every week we organized a live event, a webinar. We had a very successful Twitter chat. We organized a quiz night where all the participants that attended played games with each other. We had a teach meet at the end. So I think we were very happy with the enthusiasm around the course, and we hope to get it back. And we have indeed a very good team to do this, especially the co-moderator, Ariana. I've been working with her for a long time, and she's really a person who can engage people and involve people to take part in the side activities as well of the MOOC. So we will be back in October with the same structure. And the last slide that you see here is a kind of feedback from one of the participants. I was just seeing that I had also collected a number of tweets that I put in moments of Twitter. So if you click the link here, you will see more than 100 samples of tweets sent by participants expressing the same feeling as you see here. That they have become like butterflies, ready to fly and to enjoy the profession of a teacher. We will be back, I think, at the end of the presentation about the MOOC and how it connects to life at university and assessment, Dorothy. But I think at this moment, my contribution will stop here, because I see your schedule coming up, and that is for you to cover, I guess. So again, if there's questions, please add them to the chat line, and then we will take them now or later on.
Okay, thank you, Bart, very much as well. As most of the people will be looking at the recording remotely, Herman and Ksenia and Massimo, I'd like to engage you in the second part of the presentation that we're doing, just talking about rollout models. And we will keep the webinar itself fairly short, because we will use this as a briefing to circulate to the, as I say, 35 universities we've got involved, and we are looking for more. So I'm going to move on to the next part, which is just looking at implementation, particularly around the autumn. And what I'd first like to do is, for those of you that are familiar with our project, we use this slide just to explain our project to you. There are the three strands. There's a knowledge exchange strand, which is covering the ITE forum and the student voice, which you're very welcome to participate in. There's a monitoring strand, which is going on in the background, developing case studies, University of Agder on teacher competences, teacher educator competences, with our industry partners, with our universities, which we share and publish on our website. And the second strand in green is what we are talking about today, particularly the co-design and content, and coming to that red box, Cycle 3, the Autumn Programme. So within the Autumn Programme, I would like to just first of all say to you about flexible content options. And we have the three flexible content options, and so there we are. Sorry, I have got myself distracted. Apologies. We have the three contents, three module framework content, and teaching module frameworks. And as Connor mentioned, they have been designed with universities and the university module framework in mind, but in a flexible way, so that you can either select to run the whole thing, and Connor has given the equivalence of ECTS credits, linking to the UCD and our other partners. So Perugia, they have also been running it all the way through and have been linking it to credits as well. So we will just talk a little bit about ECTS credits in a minute with the modules. But they've also been designed in a loose framework way, so that Connor, you can talk a little more of this if we've got a question, but so that within your existing curriculum, you can look and select part and localize it. And so you can look at it and say, actually, this would work very well within this existing course. I'm going to take these ideas, I'm going to localize the content links for my own particular one, but I want to share and I want to join in with the rest of the universities to exchange experience, because the collaboration across all the universities is helping with innovate our ideas as a university and moving us forward. So we have the three frameworks there that Connor mentioned. The teaching and learning one in purple is like a baseline, and then the designing for learning and the working for learning. So we have these three flexible module frameworks. On the right-hand side of your diagram, you'll see the green box. We have one student teacher MOOC. Now this is an open MOOC, which the student teachers or beginning teachers, and as it's open, as Bart mentioned, we had teachers who just wanted to innovate their practice joining, which was fantastic, because then they were able to share and mentor and encourage the students, and so it is open. But we have that. It's a practical, and it has a focus on it in terms of tools, sharing and learning with your peers, so you become a lifelong learner within a professional learning network. And as Bart mentioned, we have expert moderators of it to stimulate and support the discussion and that's Bart and Ariana who are excel in that role as well. So that is another option as well for you, and it opens on the 14th of October. Now, in terms of implementation, you have different examples. So every university on all the different countries are facing, like their constraints within their local curriculum and how much they can do and what they want to experiment with and which group of students they would like to experiment with within or include in these activities. So here in this diagram, what we've attempted to do is to try and show you just there's a multitude of different options, but down the left-hand side you'll see the 3 teaching frameworks, the Module A, B, C, and then the Student-Teacher MOOC. Now in the green box there are University College Dublin and our ITELab partners. So that is the University of Perugia, the Polytechnic Institute of Santarém in Portugal, University of Agder in Norway, University of Newcastle in England. They are all going to be in the space in the autumn, and they're there to collaborate and look forward to collaborating and supporting with you. They have all been and trialed and co-designed, sharing their best practices, and they have then taken what they can innovate and how they want to apply it locally. So for example, if you were an Italian university and wanted to speak to one of our Italian partners, then the University of Perugia would be delighted to speak to you and share their experiences of how they've applied it locally. Similarly for any of the other universities. And so you can then just, now these universities will be in the space the whole time implementing the Module A, B, C and MOOC in a variety of different combinations themselves that suit their local environments. So then we know with the 35 universities or so that we have that are following the project, I've called University X, Y and Z, but there's a multitude of different options. One university, University of X, decides that they've looked at the module frameworks and they're going to implement parts of them within their existing course. So they look at them and think, that actually is very helpful to me. I like these resources. I like the structure of this module framework that Connor has come up with. And the partners have all tested. I'm going to take that. I'm going to put some resources in, but that actually helps me. And so they add parts into that course. Similarly, another university, I've called this University Y, has looked at it and said, actually, I am going to experiment with the MOOC. I'm going to use, and so often it's with a language class. I'm going to get all my language class, and there's a University of Spain, Juan Carlos, that does this, and they actually all register and they take the MOOC and it's assessed as part of their local assessment. And then the other options we have is that another university may select, actually, rather than parts, I really like what's going on in Module C. I like the fact that it might lead to a Microsoft Innovator Educator badge. I want to introduce that element to my students, and so I'm going to follow Module C. And maybe you have the flexibility to follow it in the block option. You design it that way, as Connor works for Connor in the University College of Dublin. Maybe you think, actually, I'm going to run it and integrate it in my weeks. It is up to you. So that is how we have all the different options. Connor and Bart, I'm going to stop briefly there before I go on to just looking at the timetable that we go next. Please, do you want to add anything further in there to help clarify? Herman and Ksenia, if you have any questions on Perugia, please, just helping people think how they may implement in the autumn. Connor.
Dorothy, thank you. I think that's been a very clear description of what we're doing. The one point I suppose I would emphasize is that right across the partnership, nobody has actually done everything. that's important to bear in mind, that people have selected what suits them locally. So, for example, while we might have had a university that signed up for Module A and Module B, and we have a number of those, in fact, what tended to happen was they did not use all of the content from either module. They mixed them, as you described there, Dorothy, and that's perfectly acceptable. The important point is that you do not have to do A to do B or to do C. They are all completely standalone. And within the materials, within each of the frameworks, it is possible to select out 2 to 3 weeks work or a single week's work and to use that for your own purposes within your own program. There's absolutely no difficulty about that, and we would welcome it indeed. And this is a pattern that we have seen across the partners. Partners take all or some of the module framework. No one has used absolutely everything of all 3 modules. It was never intended to be like that. It was always a case of they cross over, they complement, they supplement each other. The big difference between the long module, the 12 credit structure, and the shorter ones is basically to do with the focus of the block of activities. So the first one is very general. It applies to student teachers who are just starting to use technology and starting to think about technology in how they would use these in their classroom settings or in preparation for work that they will do in classrooms in the future. For example, Massimo's group are in that particular category. Others have gone to Module B or Module C because there's material that their students can take, think about, work with this evening, and use next week in a classroom setting. And that has made a difference in terms of the structure underpinning the module framework and also where we have put the focus in each case. But they're all, we looked at the competency framework, they're all at the lower end to middle end of competencies to start with, and they all rise pretty much up to the intermediate, the B1, B2 level as the module materials develop. So that's all I would actually say. The one you mentioned that the Microsoft qualification is available to in connection with one of the modules. It is only available currently in connection with module structure C. That's the one we're working on currently, and it is only available through the block option. It's not available on the longer 6 to 7 week run. It's only available when we do the 3-week blocks, and we're going to try that again in the autumn. That's one of our plans. Now I have the rough details of the time frame and so on, Dorothy, which I can give later if you want me to do so.
Okay, thank you. Now everyone seems happy with the idea of the flexible implementation. So what I'm going to go now to is the last few slides for this session, which is the program timetable, and then I am also going to ask people if they just a few questions at the end. So our program timetable, for the left-hand side of that, from the project side, we've got our pilots ending, we're getting the feedback and an evaluation, and we do a few version updates over the summer. So these will all be published and available to you over the summer. There's not major changes in them because they have been trialed and tested, except for Module C, which is the Working with Learner ones, which has had its first trial. So that's the one that Connor is going to do most, not a major rethink, but that will change slightly, won't it, Connor?
Yes, absolutely. The block part of it has been very, very interesting, very challenging, and surprisingly successful. But what we have found is we've packed a little bit too much into the intensive. The block model is different from the other part, the other run, in the sense that we've picked 2 Saturdays and we have intensive sessions running over the entire Saturday. Now the students have enjoyed that, but we've not been able to cover quite as much ground as we thought we would, so we will need to add another Monday or Tuesday evening 2-hour extra block to make the difference, to make up the difference, and to balance out for the material that students think that they're missing. But that will be the main change. We will still run the parallel. We'll support the running of the 6-week block, but UCD will concentrate once again on the 4-week block delivery rather than the week-to-week delivery for the autumn exercise.
Okay, thank you, Connor. And so there will be some small version updates that will be available over the summer and published. Connor uses the Staff Hub for the module updates for the very latest versions there. We publish them to the website, and we also publish the syllabus for the MOOC, and the registration for the MOOC and the links for that and promotional materials for everything we will be working on in June to support you for your start of term. Now, Connor, you mentioned there, well, I've got your start of term. You start on the 16th of September, I think. Is that right? Do you want to just give an update on your dates?
Yeah, indeed. We start a little earlier than European colleagues, and this has caused some rather interesting conversations over time. Our start week is actually that week, but what we are looking at doing is delaying the start of Module A framework for a couple of weeks. Now, I will have a conversation with all of the partners who are interested in becoming involved in Module A, because as it currently stands, if we start in the middle of September, and if most colleagues don't start until, say, early October, then there's a couple of weeks content missing. And what I'm interested in trying to do is get a little bit more direct contact between the various partners that are involved. So I'm open to the idea of starting the Module A run on the 7th of October rather than in September. And we have to discuss this with the partners who will be involved, and we have to get permission to do so from UCD, because it will mean it'll mean a change to the UCD semester structure. But the effect either way, whether we start Module A on that date or not, it doesn't matter. Module B will start on that date. So Module B will start the week beginning the 7th of October. Module A will very probably start the same week. And Module C will begin on the week beginning the 4th of November. Those are our current dates. They are still slightly provisional. I have to get the go-ahead from my colleagues in UCD that it suits them, but that's what we're looking at in order to, it's one of the big learning points that came out of our experience last year. It is better to start slightly later and be closer in line to what's going on among European colleagues. It gives us more chance to have useful conversations for all concerned. So I'm hoping that that's what we will settle for, but that's definitely what we're looking at. A start towards the end of September or early October for the 2 blocks, Framework A and Framework B, and then a later start for Module C framework, which again will be run on both along both channels, the face-to-face, week-to-week, and also the block emphasis. But UCD will be putting its students into the block for Module C. I hope that's not.
That's fine. Thank you, Connor. And Massimo, you're here from Perugia. I know you're still planning your sessions, and I don't know whether you want to say a few words about when you think you'll be starting from Perugia or in the chat line. And equally, if anyone else, Perugia, yeah, Massimo, please go ahead. Yes, perfectly.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Massimo.
Okay. We are trying to involve our always our third-year students that of this year, next year, they will be attending the fourth grade to follow the MOOC, the ones that didn't follow the MOOC, or to enroll my students that of Education Technology Lab of third year to attend the MOOC as well. While we would like, I would like to suggest to Floriana and other teachers and other student teachers to attend Module C instead of the fifth year 1 credit laboratory, technology laboratory that is there is scheduled at the 5th year of this 5-year course, so they can have also the very interesting Microsoft
Innovator Educator. Yep. Okay.
Exactly. Always directed to people that already had already attended Module A and Module B, maybe this year or last year. But this is all my intention. I'm hoping to that Floriana and Mina would
okay, thank you very much, Massimo, and you made a couple of really good points there. So each of the universities that we've been working since the start have been sort of cycling their students through the years through this. So Massimo talked about Module A students, so that was the baseline, and then they did Module B the next year. The student teachers who this year, who last year did the MOOC, they had a session with their, and this happened in Portugal as well, they had a session with the student teachers for the new intake to say what the benefits, why they found this really great and what they got out of it, and encourage the others to join and take. And now, as Massimo was saying, they're now looking at Module C. So they're gradually building it up across their years of students.
Yes, just to conclude, sorry, Dorothy. Just to conclude, we always have to give the students a reward, because otherwise they wouldn't be interested in doing it, an extra work in their curriculum. And so either we are going to evaluate them for the third year, second semester Instruction Technology Floriana's course, that is, I think, 8 credits, I think, something like that, and or for the MOOC, or for an extra work for the 5th year 1 credit instruction technology, education technology laboratory.
That's great. Equally, I see Vicenza, you're online now, and maybe you're a welcome speaker. Maybe you could put in your chat line when your term dates are, because you'll see on the slide. We would very much like to try and experiment with some co-teaching sessions this year across the universities. We would really like to, now I know Massimo, you were able to do that directly with Santarem, the first cycle of the projects that we did. We would like to, if possible, open it up so there's some co-teaching. It's a question of finding a time slot for that. So if you can give us your term dates, we will ask you for them, and then we will try and maybe in advance set up something that is over a lunchtime or something like that, that may work to have everyone in a similar space at the same time. Now, if you have been involved in them so far, we very much urge you to do your evaluations. We are trying to build the collaboration out with as many universities as we can and student teachers as we can to build this community. Here we have all our partners put here. We've got our industry partners who run, of course, extensive teacher networks linked to their own solutions. But those teachers are often Microsoft innovators, they're Apple innovators, they're smart innovators. What they are innovators is in digital technology. So connecting them with what we're doing, the idea of mentoring, getting them involved, the Future Classroom Lab ambassadors, that's what we're all about, is extending out. And if you can introduce any other university to us or your students, we'd be delighted to welcome them into this collaboration with you all. I have just 2 slides left, and I see Vincenza, thank you very much. You starting in October. Yeah, that's great. So we have 4 questions up there on your screen. I'll give you a little minute, those that are here in real time. We want to know your interest in co-teaching and working together in a live space all together. We want to know that the information that we're giving you is clear on the different options. Is there anything else you need for us to support? And we also want to know is, do you want another briefing session, maybe before the summer or maybe at the start of, before the summer, or probably it might suit better just before the start of all the teaching. So I'll give you a moment to just have a look at that, and if you could write your answers in the chat line for me, please, that would be excellent. And excellent, thank you, Herman. That's great. So, and Herman, for those joining remotely, Herman works with the University in Vienna, but is also one of our Future Classroom Lab ambassadors working directly with BART. And they're a network of very experienced educators, digital pedagogical educators in their own country, and we're delighted to be working with them because they help us extend and help support at a local level as well. I see someone's given you roses. Very nice, Herman. I look forward to seeing you in June at our joint meeting. I'll leave those questions up just for a minute or 2 more. If I don't receive anything in the chat line, if you've got, I'll assume that you are quite happy with them. It's the first one I particularly just ask when I've got Vincenza, you here, Herman and Ksenia. Could you just say in the chat line, can we, the co-teaching with yourselves, please could you just confirm your interest in us trying to set up a co-teaching session with your student teachers? Could you just write your response in the chat line to that number 1, because that is important to us. Yes, please. Good. Thank you, Herman. And Vincenza, if you could as well. It takes a bit of organising, but we're determined to do it this time. Yes, Vincenza, and I know already I've had from one of the other universities, well, 2 recently, saying that this was very important to them as well. So that's fine. We will organise that. That's a goal for the autumn, to support and collaborate across the universities. So the final slide we have for this particular session is what the next steps are for the universities engaging us with us and our partners in the autumn. So we'd first of all ask you to review the ITELab courses that we have, the options we have, the module frameworks and the student teacher MOOC. The syllabus for that is already published online. We're updating it all, but all that information you'll find on our website, currently under the pilots page. We will update that in June to reflect what's going on in the autumn, so it'll be called a program page. or content page, courses page. We haven't quite decided, but you'll find that all, it'll be obvious from our website. All that material's there now. You can download the 3 module frameworks to have a look at it, and you can also download the syllabus. So please, if you can review, next evaluate. If you've trialed or if you've just reviewed and wanting to observed, we're looking for your feedback and comments on the module frameworks. So please, I'll circulate the links to the survey after this, but please, if you haven't already, please complete the evaluation for us, because it helps us over the summer update the versions. Plan how and where you're going to participate in the autumn, and communicate finally. If you could please email, so Susanna, my colleague, is the autumn program coordinator at European SchoolNet. You could please email her with how you plan to participate, when, and your course and your student teachers. Then we can communicate, coordinate centrally, and work out things with Connor, etc., for a mutual co-teaching date. And I think we'll publish them well in advance so that we can get as many of you together. It won't coincide with everyone's teaching slot, but if we can do it over a lunchtime or early one morning, then we get as many in one space as possible to enjoy co-teaching and collaboration across your student teachers. So I'm looking at the chat line for any final questions. Connor and Bart, as I do that, do you want to say something as a closing note, or while we just look at the chat line? Please go ahead.
Yeah, fine by me, I would say. I was just thinking that maybe we could also share on demand some suggestions to embed the MOOC in something else happening at the university itself, because this is happening now that universities understandably want to have a kind of control on what the student is doing, and that the badge that the student would get after finishing the course itself should be added to some other activities taking place at the university itself. And we hear now that the discussions and the ideas are coming up, and on demand maybe we could also, or maybe later on, share them, of what type of ideas that we got ourselves, but mostly from universities themselves, to integrate the MOOC into another type of activity at the university, and so that students, that the university, feel comfortable of giving a credit.
Good point, Bart. And also, I just reminded me, we've had a question before about the relationship between the module frameworks and the MOOC, and the closest relationship is with module framework A, where we talk about it. And it might be, for example, that somebody looks at Module A, wants to do a part of that, and then integrate the MOOC, and then integrate it with their own teaching. Connor, I'll leave the final word to yourself, and then any final questions in the chat line, and then we'll close at that. So, Connor, over to you for any final reflections.
Well, just if I can follow, Dorothy, what you said just there, in terms of we have been very interested to try to find connections between Module A and the MOOC, and what at the moment what it looks like is we talk in Module A at an early stage about the power of MOOCs and what MOOCs can be used for and what they look like, and the example that we give, that we point the students towards, is actually Bart's MOOC, the ITELab MOOC. So it's not as strong as I'd like to see as a connection, but it certainly is a positive one, and I would hope to see that continuing and hopefully developing in the autumn. I think that's really it. You've covered most things. We traditionally have had a briefing the week before we start the particular modules anyway, and I'm certainly open to continuing that. But if any member of the teaching staff in any of the institutions wants to contact me directly by email or send me, you know, a communication of any sorts, I would be very happy to respond over the summer. During the summer, we'll be doing our bit of our maintenance, care maintenance and rebuilding to get ready for the autumn activities. And I'm not going, you know, we're not going to disappear. We will be around. So if anybody feels that they need a question answered, we're only an email away, I suppose is
Good.
what I'm saying.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Connor and Bart, for joining us today in the online briefing. And thank you also to Massimo for joining us from our partners. And we have 4 of our associate partners there today. As I say, this briefing will be shared to all the 35 universities we've got and beyond. If you do know of another university who'd like to join us in this collaboration, please email us, and I'll just put Susanna's. You can email any of us. I'll share all the emails with you. But if you email particularly around the autumn one, Susanna, my colleague, then we will make sure we connect with you in the best way possible. And I'd just like to thank you for your presence online today, and thank those watching this remotely later. And we look forward, all of us, our partners and our other universities who are collaborating, Bart and Connor, we really look forward to you joining us in the autumn with your student teachers and continuing, as Connor says, our journey with you. So we'd love you to join us in the journey, and thank you very much for attending today. I'll stop the recording there. Remain online if anyone has any questions for us, but that's the meeting closed.